In today's video, I'm going to be showing you how routing works in AUM. I'll demonstrate how to create a master bus for your project, I'll go through how to create an effect bus, and then I'll show you a couple of creative ways you can use routing in AUM. I'll show you how to create a textural soundscape using some creative routing and our FS freeze verb audio unit, and then I'll show you how to create a feedback loop.
So the first thing that I'm going to show you how to do is pretty straightforward. Whenever you make a new project in AUM, there isn't already a master fader made for you, so you have to make your own. In the project I've got loaded in front of me, I've got two channels. One with Beep Street's Sunriser synth with a pad sound, and the other with a piano loaded in Korg module. And I've got them set up so that I can play both simultaneously with my MIDI keyboard. And I'm able to change the volume of each instrument channel individually, but I'm not able to change the overall output from AUM. So this is what I need the master fader for. So to do this, I start by creating a new channel, and I'm going to rename this to Mix Bus. Now I just need to pick a bus which this channel is going to receive audio from. So for this example, I'm going to use Mix Bus A. And the only thing left to do now is to change the outputs from my instrument channels so that their output is being sent to Mix Bus A. And now I've got a master fader. I can change the overall output volume as well as the volume of the individual instrument tracks. Okay, so I'm going to move on now and have a look at how to create some effect channels. So one particularly popular way of using buses is to create effects channels. So this means that instead of loading a separate instance of an effect on every single channel you want it on, you just load it on one channel, which is your effect channel, and then you send signal to the effect channel from your instrument channels. It's pretty common to do this with reverb, as using the same reverb settings will make everything sound like it's in the same space. Also, reverb plugins tend to be quite CPU heavy, so only loading a single instance of a reverb plugin rather than one on every single instrument channel is definitely a good idea. For this example, I'm going to create a reverb bus. I'll just make a new channel, and I'm going to name it Reverb Bus. Now I'll load the reverb app here, and I'm using Futuresonic's FS freeze verb. And in the settings, I want to set the mix to 100%, as I only want the wet signal of the reverb and none of the dry instrument signal on this channel. Now, like everything else, I'm going to send the output of the reverb channel to the mix bus. But to get the instruments to actually send signal to the reverb bus, I need to set the input, and I'll use Mix Bus B as it currently isn't being used. And now I'm going to send signal from this electric piano sound to the reverb bus. And all I need to do this is to add a bus send and choose the input of my reverb bus, which in this case is bus B. So now you can hear that there's reverb on the electric piano. And if I want, I can increase the amount of signal being sent to the reverb bus, or I could change the overall level of the reverb bus with the fader here. Also, I can send more than one instrument to the reverb bus, which I'll demonstrate by sending this synth here to the reverb bus and playing both the electric piano and synth together. The other thing to consider on iOS is that if your effect isn't an audio unit and you're using inter-app audio, then you'll only be able to load a single instance of your app anyway. So by using effect buses, you can make sure that you're using your effect on more than one instrument. Okay, so there are loads of ways that you can be creative with bus routing in AUM, and I'm going to show you a cool little trick that you can do with FS freeze verb's freeze function that requires a bit of clever routing. My aim here is to load up a few different instances of the freeze verb and create a layered drone effect that I can then play over the top of. First of all, I need to make the channels. So I want my drone to be made up of 3 layers, and I'll make 3 channels, one for each layer of the drone, and then a bus to give me control over the volume of my soundscape. So I'll name these now, drone 1, 2 and 3 and drone bus. And I'll load 3 instances of the FS freeze verb. Now I just need to sort out the routing by making sure that the drone bus is being sent to the master output and that each of the drone channels are being sent to the drone bus. I'll now set their inputs to bus C. And I'll send signal from my 2 instrument channels to bus C. Now all I need to do is create the drone on each channel. Okay, so to create my layered drone, I'm just going to go through each drone channel one by one, play something, and use the freeze mode to freeze the reverb. And once it's frozen, I'll just mute it so it doesn't get annoying. Okay, so I'll start with drone number 1. And now drone 2. And finally drone 3. So now I can turn all 3 of them on and change the balance between the 3 layers to get a sound that I like. I can also use the drone bus to change the volume of the drone, or I can add some effects to make the sound a little more interesting. But essentially, I now have an ambient backdrop that I can play over.
And to finish today's video, I'm going to show you how to create a feedback loop in AUM. So I've got 3 channels set up here. On the left, I've got Rosetta loaded, but this is just for the purpose of providing an initial signal for the feedback loop. The second channel is where the magic happens. The signal is going through the FS freeze verb and then being fed back into itself through the send to bus A. I've then got this third channel on the right to control the feedback. I've got a limiter on there to stop it from getting too loud, and I've got the FS reverser delay loaded so that I can manipulate the feedback and create some interesting effects. Cool. So I'll demonstrate it all for you now. I'll create a feedback loop, and then I'll use some effects to manipulate it.
Okay, so that's all for today. Keep an eye out for the next video in our AUM Tips and Tricks series.